probably make a start now. So welcome to the first Zoom meeting of the Institute of Life Course and Medical Sciences. We're going to be recording this meeting. Do I need to do that, or are you doing that, Holly?
Already recording, yeah.
Already recording, okay. So we're recording and this meeting will be available for on the intranet at some stage in the future for people who can't make it here. Basically, the point of this meeting is really just to introduce the leadership team, present a bit of information about, obviously how we are going on with our slightly constrained working environment, questions about how we're going to try and move to restart the laboratory and the face-to-face teaching effort. A bit of questions about the university furlough system and things around employment and contract extensions, and then something about ongoing leadership roles which will be recruited to in the institute going forward. So as I say, welcome to the new institute. This wasn't the sort of launch I expected 2 to 3 months ago, and I hope you're all keeping well. I know some of you are physically in at work variously. Some of you are doing NHS service work and been doing COVID work on the front line. And I'd really like to acknowledge a lot of people who've done a lot of difficult jobs in the last 2 to 3 months, both around medical service, looking after our students, ensuring teaching is put online, and we are maintaining some business activity, as well as just trying to keep the university afloat in this, obviously very unusual circumstances. What I'd like to do is really just go round everybody of the management team, just for them to introduce themselves and say a few words just about themselves. So I'll just go around the academics to start off with, and Holly will do the professional services team. So if you want the one person who isn't here, so I'll introduce, is Deirdre Lane, who's the interim head of cardiovascular and metabolic medicine, Department of Cardiovascular and Metabolic Medicine. She may be joining us later. She's in a grant panel at the moment, so she can't be here. I'll pass you over to Kemp to have a few words now.
Okay, hello everybody, Kemp. So I'm the newly appointed head of musculoskeletal and aging science. I'm a clinical academic of a rather vestigial kind, so I'm actually professionally a clinical biochemist, chemical pathologist if you prefer. Most of my research work for a long while has been using medical imaging, and in another role I am the academic lead for the university's MRI research facility. And in all circumstances I would gesture with my right hand out the window and you would see that, some of you. And my own teaching work is largely in the School of Medicine. Perhaps that's enough said.
Okay, Christian.
Hello, my name is Christian Hedrich. I joined the university relatively recently, about 2.5 years ago. By training, I'm a pediatric rheumatologist and immunologist, and here in Liverpool, I'm working within the Experimental Arthritis Treatment Center out at the Alder Hey Institute in the park, where we are looking into molecular mechanisms of immune regulation and dysregulation in systemic autoimmune inflammatory disease. I just took over very recently, about a month ago, as interim head of the Department of Women's and Children's Health, and I'm really looking forward to working with this group. Thank you.
Okay, Rachel next.
Hello, I'm Rachel Williams. I'm Deputy Executive Dean helping Pete, and I'm interim head of Department of Eye and Vision Science. From background, I'm an engineer working very much on biomaterials and medical devices and regenerative medicine approaches, with obviously predominantly within the eye.
Okay, Hazel.
Good afternoon, I'm Hazel Scott. I'm Dean of the School of Medicine, and like Christian, I arrived about 2.5 years ago. And by background, I'm a respiratory physician and have the great pleasure of working with colleagues in undergraduate and postgraduate medical training.
Okay, and Vince.
Hello everyone, I'm Vince Bissell. I'm the Dean of the School of Dentistry. I'm also relatively new to the university, about the same kind of vintage as Hazel and Christian. I am a dentist. I am an honorary consultant in restorative dentistry. I remain clinically active and I lead a team at the School of Dentistry, whose principal function is really to produce dentists and dental professionals to work in the community, but we also train specialists and we will hopefully have an increasing research profile as time goes by.
Okay, thanks. I'll hand over to Holly now.
Hi everyone, I'm Holly Swan. I'm the head of ops for the new Institute of Life Course and Medical Sciences. Before being in this post, I was the head of ops for aging and chronic disease, and I've been in the university for about 5 years, I think, in total. I'm really looking forward to working with you all as part of our new super institute. So if I can introduce the professional services team. Sarah, can you go first?
Yes, of course. Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Baker, the school manager in the School of Medicine. I manage a team of 45 professional services staff, and we support undergraduate and postgraduate activity in the school. I've been in the university for about 3 years. My background is corporate finance within the investment banking industry.
Okay, Andrea, can you go next, please?
Okay, my name is Andrea Bryant. I'm the Student Experience Team Lead in the School of Dentistry. We currently have a team of 16 professional services staff that cover undergraduate and postgraduate within the School of Dentistry.
Thanks. Paul?
I'm Paul Gilbert. I'm the technical manager now for Institute of Life Course Medical Sciences. I was formerly in integrative biology. I've been mapped here as part of Project Shape. And I've also been in university for nearly 3 years. I think we all arrived on the same day by the sounds of it.
Anna, please.
Hi, I'm Anna Jones, the Management Services Team Leader for the new Institute. Prior to moving to the Institute, I was based in the School of Medicine. I'll be managing now a team of 16 in the Institute, predominantly dealing with recruitment and HR, and I've been in the university just over a year.
Last but not least, Ian.
Hi everyone, so I'm Ian Roberts. I've worked in the Institute of Aging and Chronic Disease previously as finance team leader, research and finance team leader for the last 8 years or so. Prior to that, I also worked in research support office in the university, so I've been in the university about 12 years. We've got a team now of research coordinators, 4 research coordinators who can help assist with all aspects of research grants pre and post award, and then we've also got a team of finance staff who can help with anything else that is finance related, whether it's auditing or forms or invoices and things.
Great, thanks Ian. That's everybody, isn't it? Haven't missed anybody.
Yeah.
I didn't really introduce myself other than I've been at university for donkey's years. So I arrived here to do a PhD in 1994. So I'm probably one of the, deserve a few long service medals. I've been an academic here since 1997. I did have 4 years away at the University of Manchester between 2001 and 2005 or 6. And but I've been here for a long time. I am a vet by background, an equine surgeon by specialism, and my sort of research is very it's basic biomedical science around arthritis and tendon disease, and we look at those diseases in both humans, model species, and veterinary species. That's what I do. Okay, so the main thing is we want this institute to be both an academic success, but also be a fun place to work, an enjoyable place to work. So, you know, obviously universities reorganize for a number of reasons, and you know, the main reason to reorganize is to improve academic success. So there is obviously going to be a desire to improve the quality of the teaching we do and the quality of the research we do. But I want to do it in a way that we end up being, it's an enjoyable, collegiate environment in which we're working. And, you know, and the big motivation behind this institute is really trying to integrate and integrate at several levels. Integrate teaching and research, which I think in the previous organization, the university, was lost to some extent, and they were running very much in isolation. So we're very keen to do that. And the research side worked very closely with colleagues in the School of Medicine, School of Dentistry, and also across life sciences and vets and such like, where we also do quite a lot of teaching in this institute, and actually really develop really good research-led teaching, and with a really good focus on the student experience, and trying to turn out the best medical and dental professionals of the future, who are going to be excellent citizens of the future. So that's one area of integration. And I suppose the other area on the research side I'm keen to integrate is to bring together both the large areas of good clinical science we have here, as well as the underpinning biomedical sciences. We have the discovery biosciences, which we haven't always had particularly well joined up across the university and the faculty. And it's obviously there are going to be areas where we won't be able to join things up, but I think going forward, that's one of my ambitions, is that we do have both research and teaching well integrated, and various aspects of our research integrated. So it is trying to drive a successful, ambitious academic institute, which combines teaching and research, and actually being a nice place to work. And that's going to be the balance I'm going to have to try and achieve. Holly, do you want to just talk about the PS piece?
Yeah, I suppose first of all, I just want to say thank you to our new professional services staff for your patience while we sorted the new institutes out. The process for doing that, I think everyone will agree, was not an ideal one, and that was largely because of the current situation that we're in. But I hugely appreciate all the hard work that you are already doing, and just to say thank you for your patience with that process and with what we're going to do next. There are some huge opportunities for us around being part of a larger institute and being able to share really good practice across the schools. We are already seeing examples of that, and we're already having discussions about the really good things that are going on across the schools and the research departments that we can roll out across the institute. And I think, as Pete says, it's striking that balance between being a really brilliant professional services and also keeping this as a really nice place to work. And we're looking forward to working with you all to build that culture for the new institute. Over the next week or so, we will be getting out to you a professional services organogram so that you can see everybody that's been mapped to the new institute and where you can go to get help if you need it, who you need to speak to. We'll also include our support from central professional services in that communication as well, just so that everybody's up to speed. Apologies again that has been a bit slow, but that's been symptomatic of the process that we've had to go through, I'm afraid. The other thing which will be part of our new and temporary professional services is the interaction with the directorates which have been created as part of Project Shape. Again, that's a huge opportunity for us, I think, in working with them to set some of the policies, both across the academic piece and the professional services piece. And I think we'll start to see the advantage of being able to do that over the coming weeks and months. So again, thank you for your patience and your hard work. Okay,
I was going to mention the very open to any questions which come in. I've got the chat open, so if people want to type in questions, do, or if you've got any points they want to make, and we'll do our best to answer anything which comes in. So we can pick up questions as we go along or at the end. So the next thing is on the agenda is to talk about reopening of the university in this post-COVID or occurring COVID era. Obviously, since the Prime Minister made his announcement a week ago last Sunday, and then more guidelines were published last week about return to work, we're very much the guidance that people should continue working from home as much as they can. But if there are areas where you can't work from home, and laboratory-based research is one of them, we should be looking to re-establish a safe working environment. So really, since that government announcements, well, we were sort of guessing we would be, some easing of lockdown would be happening, and we've been talking about, you know, a plan for how we're going to start working again for quite a few weeks. But we upped the planning quite a lot in the last week to 10 days since the Prime Minister's announcement. And we are going to try and establish some laboratory-based activities so laboratory scientists can get back in and actually start doing wet lab or computational lab work over the next number of weeks. I'm being a bit uncertain about the exact start date, because a lot of the decisions don't actually sit with us, because there's obviously a wider campus around cleaners and security and such like who we can't control entirely. But I think key to this is to be, you know, an expectation that we are going to continue working from home as much as we can, unless you're going to be actually doing something in a laboratory or something which requires you to be on campus for the foreseeable future. And when we are in the building, it will be very much in a socially distant manner. So we are, you know, working in a way that we are going to prevent any possible disease transmission. So we can't just throw the doors open and go back to a new normality, previous normality. We're going to have to develop a new normality. Safety's obviously got to be preeminent in these discussions, and appropriate risk assessments. And I'll get Paul Gilbert to talk about this in a moment. And we've got to be aware that we do have members of staff who are going to have, for some reasons, people cannot come straight back to work. We're acutely aware that some of you have health issues, which is meaning you have to shield, or you've got caring responsibilities, either which mean you have to shield, or you're caring for, kids who can't go to school at the moment, or you haven't got childcare. And there's obviously a huge equality and diversity issue about people coming back to work, or maybe prevented to coming back to work because of either health reasons or caring responsibilities. And we are very mindful about this. And so there's no pressure on, and there's no expectation for people to come straight back into work if you have either caring or health or some health reason, which means it may be difficult for you to do so. It's more important that we actually get it right, and we're going to be under scrutiny in that if people come back and we're not socially distancing, or there's, there is increased risk of disease transmission, or God forbid we have a disease outbreak because of behavior happening in how we're running the building, this will not be good for us. So I'll hand over to Paul to give you a bit more sort of specifics of the planning which is going on at the moment. So over to Paul.
Thanks, Pete. Yes, as Pete said there, we are in the planning process of trying to see what a return to work will look like. I think we are very certain that the numbers we'll be able to have in work at any one time will be much reduced to what we were used to pre-COVID-19. As a very baseline figure, we would expect a maximum occupancy of 50%, what we would normally be used to, just to allow for appropriate social distancing. We are collating information at the moment about the numbers of people who are in a position to be able to return to work, to undergo laboratory work. As Pete said, if your work can be done from home, then it must still be. Any work that can't and it needs access to laboratory facilities, we need to know about and to plan. The idea, if it's feasible, will be to put people into what we call bubbles, so that we are able to rota people's time in the buildings. And we will also be putting into place quite clear and strict distancing rules for people to abide by when in university buildings. We're developing those documents and guidelines at the moment, also needing to liaise with Central University Services in terms of cleaning and campus security, building management and the like. What we will do is ensure that there is a senior member of staff from the Institute available on any given day to contact if there are any concerns, and just to make sure that everyone is coping okay, or if any issues with social distancing or any of the measures we've got in place. Of course, what we try and put in place is all very well on paper. Once we actually start returning to work, we do need to understand from people how that is working. And if there are bits of it that aren't working, we can adjust and react accordingly. It is going to be quite an interesting transition, I'm sure. I think what we'd like to do is attempt at first to try with a couple of small groups at first for a small period of time, just to see how things work, and then scale up appropriately to a point where we have occupancy that's reasonable to maintain social distancing. We're hoping to get some plans and everything ready within the next week or so to show what we will do as an institute to make the case to reopen. The decision there lies ultimately with a university, not with us. And we will liaise with them if we need to adjust our plans or if there are any reasons why we can't go ahead with that. Hopefully, we'll communicate out to everyone as clearly and as concisely as possible what the plans are. But the bottom line here is that we all have to change our expectations about how we used to work and act very collaboratively in this process. So any concerns, any questions, or any reasons why what we're doing is not going to work in any specific area, please let me know, let Holly know, let Pete know. We will do whatever we can to try and make a return to work as feasible and safe as possible.
Thanks, Paul. So, obviously none of us have done anything like this before. So we're all novices in running labs in a COVID era. So, welcome whatever feedback and or constructive feedback which is possible. And we're still working through things about PPE, and the good news is we got our PCR machines back today, because the government had taken them for a while, or taken some of them, but from what I understand, they're all back in the building now. So I think we should be able to, once we start going, we should be okay. But the process is that we have to develop a plan for ourselves, which then I'm hoping to take to a faculty meeting next Wednesday. And then the faculty will take a joined up project together for the whole faculty sometime later on next week to the university. I always had a bit of a idea in my mind of trying to get some activity going in the labs by early June. That may slip a bit but I hope it won't slip by more than I'm putting a hostage to fortune here, but it might be a little while. I've just seen a question from Joe Middleton about the other part of the William Henry Duncan building, because that's actually been operational throughout the whole period, because the category 3 labs are within there for the COVID effort. And the reopening is going to be done on a building by building basis. So it will be the reopening of the whole William Henry Duncan building, the whole Sherrington building and such like, and the whole Biosciences building. And there is a plan of some sort of phasing. So some buildings may be opened a week or 2 or 3 later than others. And obviously I am mindful that we do have labs. We've got a footprint on 9 sites across the city, and we probably aren't going to be able to do everything at the same time. But I would hope that some very key areas will be open by sometime in the first part of June, if not early June. I don't want to be overpromise, and and I'm always in a hurry, and people tell me to slow down. So we have to work alongside the other people in the buildings as well. And obviously a lot of our other buildings we share with the NHS, so we've got to try and work with those as well to ensure everything is going to be safe and adequate.
Can I just add to that, Pete, from following Joe's very sensible question there about other areas? You're absolutely right. We will need to engage with other occupants of the William Henry Duncan, but also other neighbouring buildings across our across our faculty, to make sure that the message we're sending about behaviours and safety measures is consistent. It doesn't make sense if people can move from one building to another into an entirely different approach to safety regarding PPE, for example. So yes, we will be liaising with those, and hopefully the case that faculty put to university will not be about life course medical sciences. It will be about the whole faculty, and there must be some consistency of thought and approach across each of the 4 institutes.
Okay, so the only other thing I was going to say is that we are looking to restart lab-based science for all, for not all, but people who are able to come to work, both postdocs, technicians, academics and PhD students. The MRes students, we have moved for this academic year, have moved entirely onto dry projects. So, and it was decided the difficulties of hosting MRes students who, and the need for heightened supervision was going to be difficult to achieve in a socially distant manner. So my understanding is that they've all been moved onto dry projects, and we won't be doing wet laboratory based projects with the MRes students for the rest of this academic year. Could I hand over to Hazel to talk about School of Medicine and their plans about re-establishing teaching and face-to-face teaching in particularly, and the next academic session.
Thanks, Pete. And thanks particularly to the staff across the school who've made an amazing transition in March to online delivery, and who then went further to supplement the gaps that we've had in face-to-face and placement delivery with the creation of a large quantity of extra remote teaching. And we've been particularly encouraged by the very large number of clinicians across the region who've risen to our call for help and are sending us additional specialty related teaching content. I think it's fair to say that this episode, while challenging, has also been a little liberating. It's allowed us to explore approaches to teaching that we might have taken some time to consider otherwise. And indeed, some aspects of our delivery, we would say, have actually been enhanced by this mode of delivery. And I think that's something for us to learn from and consider as we go forwards. But for now, our position is split. We're thinking in terms of both campus delivery and placement delivery. And for campus delivery, our position is that all our lecture content should be given asynchronously online. And secondly, that as even if we had access to more teaching rooms that would allow the sort of 50% reduction in capacity, although I think given our shape of rooms, it might need to be less than that, we still wouldn't have the access to a much greater number of specialist tutors, particularly at this time of NHS pressure. So our position is that small group teaching, that is discussion and standard classroom type teaching, should continue as it is just now, to be delivered synchronously in a remote fashion. And that we would preserve capacity for small group teaching that is practical, such as anatomy teaching, clinical skills teaching, and perhaps a couple of other elements that we're looking at just now, that those would be more flipped than normal, and considerably more spread out in terms of the groups of students that are coming in. And we're trying to understand just now what that means in terms of staffing infrastructure, and in particular things like technician capacity to facilitate the rapid changeover of students moving through that. Equally, our position is that supervision, such as academic supervision, RS supervision, has been working well online, and if anything had some advantages online, and we would continue to deliver it online. As you've said, our position for our staff is that those who can should continue to work from home. And we'd, I think, like to work with others to better understand the maximum numbers that we can consider per room, per floor, per building, as we move through this. As we are non-modular, And as Canvas, we understand will not be fully operational for the start of the academic year. Our position on that is that we will use Vital over 2020 to 21 while building our Canvas operability for use in 2021 going forwards. And that means we also need to revisit what we can do with Vital, as it's going to be an increasingly prominent part of what we're doing over this next certainly calendar year, if not academic year. So we're revisiting our lecture formats, how interactive they are. We're revisiting also our choice of materials for small group teaching and how we use Vital to optimize our online interface. One thing that's become very apparent to us over these past months is that communication and engagement of our students online is crucially important at this time. And we believe that this is something that the Institute and indeed the faculty needs to pay significant heed to and invest in. We are considering, in terms of our campus delivery, that we may need to consider something in respect of our first years that we would not normally do. If we place our lectures and our small group discursive teaching in a remote fashion, it leaves very little face-to-face teaching for our first years to have. And therefore, there are issues in terms of whether, certainly before Christmas, it is better to consider not bringing those students, or not requiring at least those students to come to campus and be relatively isolated over that period of time, but to come after that when they could receive some face-to-face delivery as part of their schedule. In terms of placements, that's been a considerable issue for us, and we had to take all of our students, apart from 5th year, out of placement from the middle of March. So they've lost considerable placement time since then. We have had a Department of Health statement that medical students will have essential worker status. So we have some hope that they may have access to whatever available PPE there is and be able to return to placement as of September, and that is what is in our plan. But they have missed a lot, so we're having to work with placement colleagues to consider how we blend the portfolio requirements that they have into teaching that they will be able to access in the next academic year on placement, taking account, of course, the fact that NHS services are very different just now. How clinics are being given is very different just now. How GP practices are working is very different just now. And all of that feeds into the competencies and the experiences that we can expect our students to be able to obtain. So there's a lot of work ongoing, but I'm very grateful to partners within the school and partners in placements around the region to help us move forwards and continue to be able to graduate our doctors.
Thanks, Hazel. That's excellent. Vince, do you want to talk about dentistry and the plans there?
Yeah, thank you very much, Pete. And I could begin by just echoing Hazel's comments. It's been a privilege to lead the school at this period of time, actually, and witness the dedication and the way in which staff have responded to the challenges. It's been quite magnificent, actually. And we today actually is the second online finals paper, which seems to be going, I don't want to jinx this, actually, I need to find some wood, but it actually seems to be going quite well at the minute. And to do that, I think has been amazing, and I'm really very kind of pleased by that. In terms of plans going forward, I think we will be able, without too much difficulty, to follow the kind of hybrid teaching plan from an academic perspective that is now being proposed across the university. So a mixture of asynchronous online lectures and some synchronous small group teaching, and we'll be looking at what will be possible. I think that some small group teaching within our facilities may be possible, although it may actually not be necessary. The real challenges will come around clinical teaching. So without stating the obvious, if you think about dentistry, what it involves is actually getting very close to the mouth of somebody else and then creating an aerosol using their saliva. And if you then think that, add into that the possibility that you've got lots of asymptomatic patients coming through the door where you have no idea whether they're infected or not, the risks start to become all too apparent. And the result is that we don't think it will be possible for dental students to do aerosol generating procedures, at least this side of Christmas, which probably rules out about 70% of their clinical experience. And given that they've not been having any clinical experience since March, you can see the impact that that is likely to have on their training and our ability to, for them to achieve their competencies, particularly for the current fourth year, by the summer of 2021. So what we think we can do is to do quite a lot of operative skills simulation using the kind of simulators that we have. That will present challenges because of social distancing, so we won't be able to use our simulation labs to capacity. We will have to dismantle some of the equipment and put it elsewhere so that we can work safely, but even that will pose challenges. We work within a building very largely, which is an NHS hospital. The NHS will be seeking to return to some sort of service provision within that facility. So they will also be competing for facilities, and the requirements of social distancing will be doubly impactful therefore. So there are very significant challenges ahead, but all we can do at the minute is plan to do our best to give our students the best possible experience, and see how things develop in terms of the virus and emerging guidance. There's really not much more I can say than that, Pete. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Vince. I say dentistry does bring some major challenges in the COVID era, and it'll be interesting to see how it develops. And also I'm intrigued about how it's happening in the rest of Europe, because I did see a tweet from Blondine, who's probably online, saying she'd just been to the dentist in France, so because she's living in France at the moment. So obviously the French are operating some systems, so but it's going to be a major challenge how we deliver on that.
Yeah. And it's likely that we will see a return to primary care dentistry in the coming weeks in this country. The challenges around dental training, however, are that most of it takes place on quite large open clinics where you might have 20 students working on 20 patients in 20 dental chairs with very little sort of space between them, which just adds a little even more complexity into the situation. But it is a problem that all of the dental schools in the UK are facing. It's not just us. And so there is a lot of talking going on between the deans of dental schools and our stakeholders about what is possible.
Okay, thanks, Vince. There's a couple of questions which I think I'll address now. So one from George Bugarios: much of the wet lab work requires animals. What's the ongoing? How is opening going to be coordinated with the BSU? So there's ongoing discussion. It's going to be part of the faculty plan going forward, is integrating some increased activity in the BSU with an aim to get some operational use of the BSU for research in the next few months. I think the worry I have with the BSU is that we've obviously had issues already, that we've stopped animal work very quickly, which has had an effect on their projects. And I think if we ramp up animal work too quickly while we're still in the risk of quite a sizable risk of having a second wave of COVID and then another shutdown, we've got to balance the risks of trying to get some research happening and the chances of a second wave shutting down research precipitously again. But I think, so we've got to just factor that in. But obviously there's a lot of our projects do rely on the use of animals, and we can't just, we are probably going to be in the same situation with COVID in 6 months and 12 months time, or a similar situation of risk. And so we're going to have to try and get it working. So there is trying to develop a plan around that. I can't give you any specific details other than we are looking to sort of integrate the BSU into opening. Paul Knox has just identified that.
Sorry, Pete.
Yeah, go on.
Pete, sorry for interrupting. Can I just an additional thing to mention about BSU there? It is really important when we try and understand how many people are able to come into work for laboratory activities, how much of that would need use of animals, simply because if we are to undertake any BSU work, it will actually take quite some time to get animals in and get them ready for work. So if we know in advance, now we might not be able to operate much in the way of BSU for the time being, but we still need to know pretty immediately what that scale of and type of work with BSU would need to be, so that between us and the BSU, the procurement and preparation of suitable animals can be planned and organised.
Yeah, it's a good point, Paul. Thanks. The MRes going forward is the assumption that we are still, certainly when the new cohort of the MRes students come in the autumn, is that we will still, well, undoubtedly we'll still be in a social distancing era. And so the plan is the first sets of projects will also be dry projects, and that call will be going out in June. So going forward I don't think it's likely we'll be able to get the MRes students really into the labs in any major way well until 2021, I suspect. Question from Helen Wright about ethics being suspended, and there is an ongoing efforts to re-establish sponsorship to allow ethics to proceed now on a risk-based basis. It was brought up in a management meeting earlier this week, and Louise was writing to Tony Marston, who chairs the University Sponsorship Committee, to give him instructions to start looking at restarting clinical projects. Helen's specific question about she realized getting blood samples from patients, which obviously you can't in the previous way we worked, wouldn't be socially distant. I suspect we can get blood samples from patients going forwards with appropriate use of PPE and such like, and we'll just have to develop a risk assessment to do that and then get that project off and going. It may not be something which will happen in the next few weeks, but I would hope in the next few months we can start trying to develop risk assessments where you have to get blood samples from people for research, that there is, imagine with appropriate PPE, it will be able to be done in a completely safe manner. I'm glad to see Paul is nodding slightly. So,
hey, can I just add to that, Graham, here? In my capacity as chair of an ethics committee, obviously that's an internal ethics committee that deals with healthy subject work, but I think the principle's the same for NHS work. Yes, you're absolutely right. It's not an ethics problem as such, it's a sponsorship issue. It's a managerial instruction to cease that work. But as far as the ethics systems are concerned, as long as the right things are put in place, properly risk assessed, properly approved and managed, there'll be no difficulty approving what changes that means for the protocol in terms of ethics amendments. The ethics system has adapted, actually, I would say, very well to the need to process amendments and new projects very quickly at the moment. So I don't think that's the problem. The problem is the problem of how to take the samples safely. It's essentially this reopening question in a specific form.
Yeah, so Joe Middleton has just put up on the chat about that people are giving blood samples for research in the Ronald Ross at the moment, but these are people who've been tested. The problem is, I would say, is the test is only good for 24 hours before they may get infected the next day. And I suppose the other thing is, as antibody testing is geared up, is whether it's developing an appropriate risk assessment. As do you look at people who've had COVID and such like that? So and I think it just comes down to specific risk assessment for each project, which will have to be worked up. And it is, from memory, Helen takes blood from actual staff volunteers and student volunteers, so they're people in the building anyhow generally. And John Wilding has just identified the fact that NIHR are publishing guidance documents about restarting clinical research. But I think everything is possible with the appropriate risk assessments and appropriate mitigation to make sure these things are safe and not increasing risk both to the volunteer who is doing something for research and our staff and students. Is there anything else you want to say on that, Paul, as probably the best safety person here?
I would question that. But being the best safety person. No, I think you're right. A lot of this will be down to having the correct PPE in place. Now, there will be blood collection going on in various other ways for various studies currently, but with people who haven't been tested. I think the risk assessment process is vital to identify what PPE will be worn and how it will be managed. Anything less than face visors, masks, gowns is probably not going to get anywhere, but that needs to be identified by risk assessment. Just to jump backwards slightly, there's been a question on the chat from Victoria Kearns about BSU requirement. The question there is, you completed the back to the lab form and is now asking whether or not it should be submitted again with information about future use of BSU. I think it would probably be sensible to say to anyone that yes, send that with information about the scale of what you might need from the BSU. What we can do in the first instance is pass that information on to the BSU and say, maybe not immediately, but over the coming months, this is what people would like to be able to access from the BSU so that we can get their understanding of what's possible. If we leave that for now, then we'll be adding a couple of months extra on. Is that sensible, Holly? Are you happy to receive more forms with that information?
Just can't, there we go, sorry, I couldn't unmute myself then. Yeah, that's fine, we'll keep the survey open. Equally, if there are people that originally didn't need to come back immediately, but in a few months' time can, and do want to come back, and you can fill that survey in again, and we'll still need that information from you, and we can add you into our plans.
Okay, thanks. So I think we need to move on from reopening, and I think I'll get Holly to talk about the university furlough scheme or the government furlough scheme and how the university is implementing it, and a bit about contracts and extensions. Just as a preface to this, is we've done a lot of work on trying to understand the furlough scheme, and the university has tied itself a bit in knots over it. I think that is a bit of an understatement, and different universities have interpreted the furlough scheme in very different ways, and I would say we still haven't got total clarity from our university and how it's being addressed. We've done our best to try and furlough people. I think the key thing is that if people do get furloughed, and we are trying to furlough some people, it's got no implications for your employment or your worth to the institution. It's just a way of actually saving some money in this time when you're not working effectively from home, your work is constrained by either you can't do your job effectively from being at home or for actual caring responsibilities and such like. So it's got no implications. The good news for us is that we can furlough retrospectively. So we are still trying to get some people furloughed and backdate it back to end of March. And all that will do is it will help our balance a bit and our bank balance a bit, but it won't actually have any implications for anybody's employment ongoing. So I don't know if Holly wants to say anything more about furlough and contract extensions.
I suppose there's not a huge amount more to say. We're still working with HR and finance on this. The way that it has been organised has largely been based on the organisational structure of the old institute. So if you were in IACD, you will have received an email from me asking you to look at the staff in your area and tell us if there's anybody that meets the requirements for furlough. We are then feeding that back to HR and finance. We've had lots of questions about whether staff, particularly on fixed term contracts, if they're furloughed, whether we can then extend the contracts later on. We've had some quite mixed advice on this. When we first read the HMRC legislation that came out, it was very clear to us that we wouldn't be able to do that, that furlough was to be used to stop organisations from collapsing financially, and we couldn't use it to then extend a contract that we otherwise wouldn't have extended. Since then, we've seen some different legislation, we've had different advice from HR, and it looks like we might be able to do that for some staff. So we are looking at that on a case-by-case basis, and we're liaising with HR and finance in order to do that. I think part of the problem has been the complexity of university contracts, and the original furlough legislation really applying excellently to commercial organisations where, for example, a shop is shut and you can tell all the staff to go home, they're all on permanent contracts and they can be furloughed. But the nature of it, for example, a postdoctoral contract and the relation of that to a particular research project means it's not quite as straightforward for us. And that's the reason that we've seen quite a lot of delay in this area as well. But just exactly to echo what Pete has said, people are being selected for furlough really if they haven't been able to work in the way that they would have if they were on, well, if they haven't been able to do their work really because they've been off campus, and also if they've had to do other things like care for people in the household. I think that's all we can say at this point about furlough. You will be spoken to individually if you're somebody that has been put forward for furlough, but at this point we're basically trying to see who is eligible before we have those conversations. With regard to contracts and extensions, at the moment we are hugely limited in what we can do in this capacity. We don't really have a budget as an institute anymore. This is being controlled through the faculty leadership team, rightly so, because of the financial situation that the university is in due to COVID. We are trying to work through contracts in a chronological way. We're looking first, obviously, at those people who are due to finish in the next 1 to 3 months and have not been able to either finish their postdoc contract or perhaps who we need to keep on now because of this situation. And so we're working through them on an individual by individual basis again, and we'll be having conversations with you about that. Contract extensions and new posts are coming under particular scrutiny at the moment by FLT, and that's just reflective of the financial situation that we're in as a university. So I suppose the message there is really that we're doing our best to work those through, but we're beholden to approval from that committee.
I think it's just worth acknowledging, you know, obviously COVID, and it's obviously very strong in the media at the moment about the financial implications of COVID. You know, it obviously is going to have major effects on the university's finances, and that's, you know, in fairly much in the public domain. Actually, you know, it is going to have major implications on the University of Liverpool's finances, but we are in a slightly better place than many similar universities. So, you know, there are some universities maybe running out of cash fairly quickly, but we wouldn't be among one of those universities. So, okay, there is going to be you know, undoubtedly changes in how the university operates around its plans in the next 1 to 3 years as a consequence of this. And I think, you know, the full impact is going to be very unclear until, you know, the initial impact until well into the autumn, because the two major effects on our finances are going to be how many overseas students come in September, October, and particularly how many of the XJ-TLU students actually will travel to Britain or will be allowed to come to Britain. And secondly, how many home students will actually come next year and how many will actually defer. And that's a really uncertain feast at the moment. I saw there was a survey and it was published in The Guardian that sort of up to 20% of 18-year-olds are thinking of deferring a year. And it just takes, you know, 20%. Okay, medicine and dentistry probably pretty safe because we'll they are popular courses, but it's the overall university finances and how many people are doing arts and humanities subjects. Will they still come to university if they don't get the normal student experience? So I think that's the thing. But finances are going to be difficult, but we're not as challenged as some of our similar Russell Group universities, which is the take-home message there. Just on the chat, I saw Christine Cornfirst made a very sensible suggestion that all studies already have existing risk assessments, and these probably can just be modified to identify COVID relevant risks rather than creating another separate assessment. So that's obviously a very sensible suggestion. Back to Holly again now for working at home and well-being and what we're doing around that.
Yes, I think as we've alluded to several times now, when we first went off, we thought this might be for a month or 6 weeks, and now it looks like this is going to be our way of working for the foreseeable future. So we want to make sure you're comfortable at home, that you've got what you need, and I know you will have seen that the university is allowing people to buy office chairs for use at home. And we're organising that through the Institute, and the schools are also taking an approach to organising that as well. So if you do need a chair, do make sure you get one. We're hoping that as we open some of the buildings up for people to access the labs, because we will have a senior person on site, we will be able to organise some contactless pickup of equipment that is in those buildings. It doesn't matter if you are in another building like Cedar House and you want to get a screen, we will still be able to organise that, and we'll hopefully be able to do that in a contactless and safe way, and we'll trial that once we start to get up and running again. The other thing I just wanted to say to you all, really, as we've all said, we know you're working incredibly hard. You're doing this while you're juggling other commitments, whether those are clinical, caring responsibilities or whatever else. So thank you for that, but please keep talking to us, keep taking part in our social activities that we have got up and running. We have the quiz every Friday, and Graham Kemp is a spectacular quiz master, so it's well worth tuning into that on a Friday afternoon. And I know many of you are organising your own social events as well, and that's really fantastic to see. Take part in our competitions, and if you are struggling, we are here to help you. Get in touch with your line manager, your head of department, or anybody else that you feel comfortable talking to. And because we are in this situation for the foreseeable future, it is so important that we continue to make contact with each other. We hope that we will be able to build our virtual institute this way, and when we get back on campus, perhaps some of the things we've learned, like for example doing the seminars online, is a fantastic way to get much more attendance, and we will be able to continue with. But yeah, really just on well-being, it was to say that if you need things while you're at home, let us know, and if you're struggling again, let somebody know and talk to us.
Okay, thank you. Rachel, do you just have a brief introduction about leadership posts going forward and governance structure?
Sure. So we've been putting together a governance structure for the new institute that's very much matching, obviously, what's happening in the other institutes across the faculty. I've already sort of filled, as you've noticed, as you've been introduced to us today, several of the particular roles, but there are some other roles that will be going out for expressions of interest over the next, hopefully, couple of weeks. One of those is associated with an Equality and Diversity Committee, so that will need a chair. There's another one that will need the IRAC committee, that will need a chair as well. And then within the education committee, each department will need a department education lead. So these will go out as a fairly simple process, sort of application process, putting forward an expression for interest with a CV and a fairly short letter on why you think you'd like to have that role. And then we will sort out interviews for those particular roles in the coming weeks, but try and get those sorted and going as soon as we possibly can. These are obviously are going to be really important roles to try and bring things together across the institute, and so you know, and the fact that many of the different people from different institutes that have now come into our new institute, there may be people with experiences on there which will be really helpful to us to take these roles forward. We have an organogram for this. We'll get these out again. Just sort of tweaking some bits on it still, but hopefully in the next week we'll try and get this out to everybody so you can see how the structure is going to fit together. I think that's really all I need to say, Pete. Thank you.
Is it just worth mentioning a bit about research support group going forward and how that's going to work?
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to be chairing the research support group, and the research support group has already been put together, and in fact we've already met once. In the research support group there is myself as chair and Pete and Holly as institute leads, and then as a representative from each of the departments and the 2 schools. And we also have the PGR lead, which is Simon, or actually Aphrodite is taken on as deputy ID PGR. And we also have an early career researcher lead on there and the technical lead, so Paul Gilbert joins us. And the really important thing about research support group is that it is there to support people in terms of putting grant applications in. And we've had some really good discussions already on how different areas of the institute is now coming together, where there are opportunities for new collaborative groups to come together. And I think the research support group really wants to try and build these structures so that we can work with each other in a much more collaborative way. We do have some processes that we found in the past to be quite useful. So we have a document about that all grant applications come through research support group before they go to the before they're submitted, and we then put together a internal peer review group to be very supportive in terms of helping that application to be as best it possibly can before it's the application goes into the grant awarding body. So those documents, we've just been tweaking those from our last meeting, and those will go out through your departmental RSG member, rep and head of department probably over the next week actually, and trying to sort of put the processes into place to really have a supportive research structure to help the grant applications really get funded. And we look forward to hearing how all the different groups are coming together in that way.
Great, thank you, Rachel. Deirdre, you weren't here at the start. Do you want to just introduce yourself and to say a bit about yourself and background, as Deirdre is the new interim head of the Department of Cardiovascular Science and Metabolic Medicine. Cardiovascular, can never remember the title fully, but you'll correct me now.
So thanks, Pete, and apologies to everyone for being late joining. I was on a grant panel meeting that overran. So I'm Deirdre Lane. I'm a reader in cardiovascular health, obviously in the institute, and as Pete said, I'm the interim head department for cardiovascular and metabolic medicine. So I think I'm fairly new to University of Liverpool. I've been here since February 2019, and I joined as part of the Liverpool Centre for Cardiovascular Sciences. So I think it's a great opportunity, obviously, to be head of department and to bring together people who've been working in cardiovascular sciences from across the university under sort of one umbrella, and also obviously the metabolic medicine teams mainly from out at Aintree. So it's a great opportunity, I think, for us to work together, and obviously together with the Centre for Cardiovascular Sciences, to hopefully sort of build some, well, I think make cardiovascular metabolic medicine a sort of a big thing in Liverpool, the region, and nationally, internationally too. So welcome to everybody.
Great, thanks, Deirdre. So that's the end of the main agenda. We've had a few questions, but I think we've answered them all so far. So if anybody has anything else burning they wish to ask, either type it, or, you know, if you want to unmute and ask anything. I assume most people have asked what they want. I'll just give you a few more minutes. Just going forward, I think there's a few things I just want to say to conclude. First off, just thanking everybody, because it's obviously been an immensely challenging time over the last 2 to 3 months. And, you know, literally, because of all your efforts, we've moved mountains, and, you know, we've put the university from, you know, a traditional face-to-face university to virtually entirely online in a number of weeks. A lot of research is still ongoing. I think, you know, I'm aware of a huge number of papers being produced. There's a lot of grants going in. There's, you know, there's all sorts of things. You know, in my world, there's a lot of stuff going on which we should have done years ago, and we're finally beginning to sort out now. So it's been, you know, everybody's, you know, really done a great job in doing. I'd like to thank you all for your efforts. I know it's not been easy. It's not going to be easy going forward over the next 6 to 12 months as we sort of move into this post-COVID era. Well, hopefully post-COVID. We're still in COVID now, but as we go forward. But I really appreciate everybody's help and input. I'm hoping that we'll run these meetings as a regular event, you know, probably every 3 to 4 weeks, so to keep you informed. I think the next one we'll probably get, we've got 4 substantive centres in the research centres in the Institute, which are the Liverpool Centre for Cardiovascular Science, CEMA, which is the Musculoskeletal Ageing Centre, the Experimental Arthritis Treatment Centre, and the Harris Centre for Better Births. So I think we'll probably next one, I'll get the heads of those centres to introduce their centres to give an idea of our sort of leading research going on in the university, and our plans and strategy of how we develop that, and also get some of the people who are going to be doing some of the other leadership roles. Particularly, I'm very ambitious about what we do about equality and diversity, and it moving towards both keeping our silver Athena Swan and moving to a gold Athena Swan award, which is going to be a challenging in a clinically facing department, but I think we can really start thinking about how we move towards that. So these are sort of, you know, ideas, and I'm open for anything else anybody wants to hear about in these meetings. So it's not just, you know, a one-way information flow, that there is a sort of, you know, everybody's contributing to it. So if there's no other questions, I'd like to thank everybody for the, you know, the leadership team who've been along today, and hope to see you all in person at some stage in the next year, but I'm not sure when that's going to be. So hopefully see you in a number of weeks' time. Okay, thank you.